Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just going to do a video on salvation. And so this is a very, very important term that's used regularly, in Christianity, sermons, teaching, and all that kind of stuff. And so very important to understand it, and I'm going to focus in on its significance in the end times as well. And, so it's a term used regularly, like I said. And then so if it's misunderstood internally, then it's definitely not going to be understood by those outside looking in. And so I'll go through it here in this video, look at the different times that it's used, the instances that it's used in the Bible from the Old Testament and New Testament. And then we'll get some clues, some insights into the individuals that will experience this salvation, some of the requirements, for those who do experience it. And again, I'll tie it in all to the end times and how important it is to that. And so I just searched the term salvation in Bible Gateway. And so right from the beginning, we see in Genesis 49:18, I will wait for your salvation, O Lord. So we can see even in the end times, in the Old Testament, from the very, very first book, that it has come up, and it's been something that people have been waiting for many, many years. And in that case, we will see in Genesis, we see that it requires patience. In Exodus, fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord. Again, it's a visual thing. I want people to have one major takeaway from this, that this is not, salvation is not something that someone gets in order to avoid hell. Those things have already been predetermined. God's right and left-hand side are predetermined. Salvation is a way for us visually to see God's right-hand side. The quote, cream of the crop of the right-hand side. It's not a decision, that a human makes or even God makes in the end times or at any time. These have already been decided from the beginning. And so it's for all of us to actually visually see God's right-hand side, again, the top of it, taken away. And so if we're not a part of it, it doesn't mean that we're not on God's right-hand side. It means that we will be in tribulation, and then we have to refuse the mark of the beast with our life. And so those two groups are a part of God's right-hand side on earth in the end times. And so it's very, very important to get that right and to understand this, that it is not just saying the sinner's prayer and then, God accepting you into heaven or anything like that. Again, we'll see that here in these verses that is not the case. So again, in Exodus, see the salvation of the Lord. He has become my salvation in Exodus. Deuteronomy, rock of his salvation. Judges, you have granted this great salvation. 1 Samuel, because I rejoice in your salvation, you shall have salvation. Lord has worked salvation in Israel. Again, I'll talk about that shortly. Great salvation in Israel. The Lord worked a great salvation for all Israel. For my Lord working salvation himself, working salvation with my own hand, my shield and the horn of my salvation. You have given me the shield of your salvation, the rock of my salvation. I'm going to focus in on 1 Chronicles 16:35. This one summarizes everything, I would say, very, very well. Say also, save us, O God of our salvation, and gather and deliver us from among the nations, that we may give thanks to your holy name and glory in your praise. So first off, being saved, salvation is the same thing. And then this is an event of gathering and delivering a group from among the nations. And so salvation, deliverance, redemption, avoiding, the hour of temptation, preventing somebody from going through great tribulation. All these terms and phrases are synonymous with salvation. And here we see that it's from among the nations. And so we see in Bible prophecy that God has said and prophesied that he will scatter, the Israelites throughout all nations. And so this was for disobedience, first and foremost, but also very, very important in the end times, because this salvation event, as you will see for people who have watched my video on the book of Revelation recently, will be the quote kickoff of the end of the end. And so this will then mark the great tribulation period's beginning, where the world will be tested with the mark of the beast being forced. And so God would, quote, need an event to happen worldwide that everybody will see. And again, in Revelation, Jesus, we see and read that he says that in his second coming, every eye shall see him, even those who pierced him. And so this will be a worldwide event, and it has to be in order to give the government a quote-unquote reason to implement the mark of the beast worldwide. And so it can't be just in one part of the world, Europe, America, or something like that. It has to be worldwide. And so again, this scattering was a judgment, for Israel's unrighteousness, but also very, very important in the end times that he has his people represented in all nations, because like it says here, they will be delivered from all nations. And so just know that, again, I would highly recommend somebody watch my video on the book of Revelation, that this event, if we see it, means that God is real, the God of the Bible is real, and we're in the end of the end times. That is the Great Tribulation period that will begin, and these lucky individuals, and we'll get some characteristics of who they will be exempt from that. And so that is what they're being, quote, saved from, is Great Tribulation. But they are going to be saved out of tribulation, which I believe we're living in right now. 2 Chronicles, be clothed with salvation. See the salvation of the Lord. Again, it's a visual thing. It's on earth. Job, this will be my salvation. There is no salvation for him in God. That is referring to somebody scoffing, and this will have a lot of people like that. Even those of us who are waiting for this event, we will have doubt, like, where is the promise of God's coming and all that kind of stuff. So in Psalms 3:2, there is no salvation for him in God. We'll see that, and there'll be a lot of people even with Bible in hand and say that there is no salvation, there's no rapture, there's no this and that, what are you waiting for, and all that kind of stuff. But those are people, in my opinion, that just don't have faith, and they're just controlled opposition, because we need salvation. There are many, many people on earth right now who are in a very, very destitute condition that need to be saved, and there is nobody on earth that will save them. And one great example is the poor, and we'll get into that in this lesson. And so they have no hope. They have no hope here on earth except to take their own life, and so God has offered another way out, and we'll read about that shortly. And so there are many, many people that need salvation, in particular, the blind and the lame. Salvation belongs to the Lord. And so a very, very important thing about this salvation moment on earth is that we're going to see God. We're going to see him, and then we're also going to see where his heart is, and where his mind is, and where his people are. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your right hand had supported me, and your gentleness made me great. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation. Again, this is proof that obviously God exists, but then also the Lord, the God of the Bible, exists. And so, we can see just everywhere in the Old and New Testament, we'll see salvation used over and over again. Clearly, it's used a lot in the Psalms. And, you can just do this same kind of search, and, you will see, even in Isaiah, be our arm every morning, our salvation in the time of trouble. Again, salvation is for a time of trouble. It's not a time of great tribulation or great trouble, but it's a time of trouble where a group of people, a select group, will be taken away before the real calamity hits. Isaiah 45:18, that salvation and righteousness may bear fruit. And I'll read shortly how those two things are linked, and how a person, what they, quote, have to do on their end in order to have this salvation experience happen to them, and what is required of them in terms of righteousness. So another very, very important instance of this term, saved or salvation, comes in Matthew 24:13. This is right from Jesus' mouth. But he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. And so we see here that it requires endurance. And so it's an earthly thing. There's no endurance, in the spirit world, that type of thing. And so, that's very, very important to understand. And it is described it is a term that is used to describe the end. And so this means that we're literally in the end times when this event happens. And this is Jesus explaining to us in Matthew 24. He goes through the entire sequence of the end times, but this is the beginning. And then he says after this that the gospel shall be preached, and then the end will come. And so that's when the great wrath happens. And so I've done videos on that for people to check out. But just know, again, this term was used regularly and consistently throughout the entire Bible. And here we know that it requires, if we read Genesis, we can see that the very, very first instance of it that I read, I will wait for your salvation. So we see that it requires patience. In Matthew 24:13, we can see that it requires endurance. And so even in the book of Revelation, it says that the saints will have patience and faith. And so now let's look at some characteristics of these people that will be saved. And so I say people because it's not only men. And Jeremiah 31:7-10 gives us very, very good insight into this select group. For thus says the Lord, sing aloud with gladness for Jacob, and raise shouts for the chief of the nations. Proclaim, give praise, and say, O Lord, save your people, the remnant of Israel. So again, these individuals will be scattered. Like it says here, behold, I will bring them from the north country. You could read that as North America, the quote-unquote Western world, and gather them from the farthest parts of the earth. Among them, the blind and the lame. This is the very, very important part. Among them, the blind and the lame, the pregnant woman and she who is in labor together, a great company, they shall return here. With weeping they shall come, and with pleas for mercy I will lead them back. I will make them walk by brooks of water in a straight path in which they shall not stumble. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Hear the word of the Lord, O nations, and declare it in the coastlands far away. Say, he who scattered Israel will gather him, and will gather him as a shepherd keeps his flock. So again, God has done this scattering. It's a judgment, a penalty, a punishment, but also here, this reuniting is a gift, for those. And again, we're getting some insights here. Among them, the blind and the lame, the pregnant woman and she who is in labor. And so again, of all the people that need salvation, it would be this group. First and foremost, the blind and the lame. No one cares about them on earth. Not a single group, not a single person. I do what I can to remind people of that here on this channel, but no one cares. They're too busy arguing, debating about nonsense. Who's an Israelite, who's not an Israelite, Mandela effect, flat earth, ball earth, Donald Trump, his impeachment. Every other stupid topic under the sun is discussed except the blind and the lame, which the God of the Bible says from the very, very beginning to the very, very end. And we'll see that in a future verse that I'll read. This is where his heart is. And so for people who see this, if it's in our lifetime and don't rejoice when this is happening, they're outside of the fold. They do not understand the heart and mind of God, that these are God's chosen people. No one can imagine, with the way we've all been programmed on earth, that this is where God's heart will be. But it's true. The God of the Bible runs completely antipodal, contrary to the ways that this world is programmed us to think, who's important, who's not. And so the blind and the lame need salvation. No one else is helping them here on earth. A pregnant woman also does as well, because that child that's in her womb is going to be attacked right from the get-go. The enemy will come and offer an abortion. They'll offer vaccines. They'll offer, mind control through our education system. They will offer debt, to go to college, and then they'll offer a plantation, if they're lucky to go and work. And so that child, that pregnant woman also needs salvation more than anybody. And so this, I believe, also is a reference to birth pains, that Jesus describes for the end times. So that's why a pregnant woman is used, but it's very literal as well. And so also very important to know that it's going to be men and women, and so I'll show that. I'll read that in another verse coming up. But again, here in Jeremiah 31, we get a very, very good summary of salvation. Again, in verse 7, O Lord, save your people, the remnant of Israel. So there is a small group. Again, it's a very, very small group. It's not billions of people or anything like that. It's for the few people who understand the heart and mind of God and ultimately want to be saved. There's no other entity on earth that is going to rescue these people except the God of the Bible. So another very, very important verse, again, to support the fact that it's men and women, is again coming back to Matthew 24, which is a very, very important chapter. And this is Jesus speaking himself. Matthew 24:36-44. But concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. So this is very important verse and statement that Jesus makes. No one knows the day or hour, but we're going to be reminded later on that we need to know the time period. For people who teach the Bible, they can't just say, oh, the end times will come eventually and all that. No, for people who claim to have a connection to God, we have to have an understanding, be circumspect and understand the times that we live in. And so I will say confidently that we have to be close to the end, because again, there's just a tremendous amount of lies. The world is about to collapse just purely based on financial means, much less all the other plagues and mark of the beast and all this stuff that are prophesied. So we have to be, just because the imbalances, the financial disparities are so great. Again, that's Bible prophecy in order to create the poor, the blind and the lame. And so God designed this, but then he designed it so he could rescue those at the quote bottom, in this earthly structure, this satanic left-hand side structure that's on earth right now. And so it's all Bible prophecy, but I want people to know that Jesus says here, we don't know the day or hour. He doesn't either, but we're going to read later on that we're required to know the time period. And I believe very much, and I'm being reaffirmed of this every day, that we are living in these days where the God of the Bible is about to, quote, pay us a visit. Verse 37, for as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. So it's literally till the day of Noah putting his foot in that ark, people were still marrying, eating and drinking, marrying and giving into marriage. And that's the time that we live in now. But the thing that I see, and it's becoming very, very obvious for those who follow any aspect of the economy here in America, is that we're on the edge. We're on the precipice of something big happening purely just from store closures, the economy slowing down, and all that kind of stuff, and all this exorbitant money printing, repo rates. I've posted many videos on that. So this thing is about to get crazy, quote unquote, without God, just purely from a financial perspective. Obviously, God is behind that. I'm speaking from like an earthly perspective, like just isolating that one variable. But so there's a time coming without all the plagues that are described in Revelation and the mark of the beast, that people will not be doing these things, eating, drinking, marrying, and giving into marriage. So it's becoming harder and harder for the average American to just be clueless that something's wrong. So that to me is strong, strong evidence of the fact that we're living in these very, very days that Jesus is describing here in Matthew 24. And he says here in verse 40, then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. So it's going to be men and women. And so that is also, what I read earlier in Jeremiah, so it's not a big surprise. The Bible is consistent from beginning to end. Verse 42, therefore stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not let his house be broken into. So if we look at this phrase, part of the night the thief was coming. So if he's using night in the very least, could be literal, to describe darkness, an evening. And so what part of this evil or darkness this thief is coming? And so we should know, there's just a tremendous amount of evil on earth. Obviously, majority of it is through the central banking scam. And the whole world is involved in sin, just from everywhere, left to right, top to bottom, everywhere, And so, the animals are struggling. They don't even know what to eat. They don't have anything to eat. They're eating animals that they are not necessarily designed for and all that. And so it's really the same thing happening with humans as well. People are involved in things that are sinful. We're not designed to be a beast, which is the system that we live in right now. And so we're in that, quote, part of the night, that the thief was coming. And so Jesus is saying here, he would have stayed awake and would not have let this house be broken into. And so he's describing a spiritual thing where, if we're awake then we will not let our house, let's say it's our body, our mind, however you describe it, our temple, be violated, by the lies and the evil of this world. And the Bible says in Revelation, come out of her, my people. Don't be partakers of her sins. And so he's alluding to that here as well. Verse 44, therefore you must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. No surprise, that's verse 44. For you must also be ready. That's referring to as elect. That's the group, the 144, the men that will be saved. And then, like I've read here and then earlier, that it's women as well. And so, but again, all these things are on purpose and done very, very carefully. And 144 is a very, very important number in the Bible. So, therefore, you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. And so, we don't know the day or hour, like it said in 36, but we definitely are required to know the time period based on verse 43. So, men and women will be saved, and the blind and the lame. And so the last verse that I want to go through is Ezekiel. And so the natural question now should be, well, what kind of characteristics, will these individuals have? And so I thought this was one of the best summaries. There are many that a person could take from the Bible, but Ezekiel 18:5-9 reads, if a man is righteous and does what is just and right, if he does not eat upon the mountains or lift up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, does not defile his neighbor's wife or approach a woman in her time of menstrual impurity, does not oppress anyone, but restores to the debtor his pledge, commits no robbery, gives his bread to the hungry, and covers the naked with a garment. That's required for those on God's right-hand side in the final judgment verse. I've done videos on that. Again, I'll read that again. Gives his bread to the hungry and covers the naked with a garment. Jesus says that those people that do that are doing that directly to him. And so God hides himself in the hungry and the naked. Going on to verse 8, does not lend at interest or take any profit. So look again, this is almost, it's not funny, but look at the world that we live in. Does not lend at interest or take any profit, withholds his hand from injustice, executes true justice between man and man, walks in my statutes and keeps my rules by acting faithfully. He is righteous. He shall surely live, declares the Lord God. That is an excellent summary of those individuals that will be quote unquote saved and will live, and they won't see death, in the days that we live in. And so this shows us why a lot of the people have to be poor. They have to be blind and lame because they will not even be involved in any of this stuff. They don't have any money to lend. No one's giving them anything. They are the ones who are going to be, clothed and hungry, and they don't oppress anyone because they are being oppressed themselves. They're not dating, and like creeping around with women, and they don't even have a neighbor because they don't have a home. And so this is why God hides himself in the poor, because those people who are blind, lame, poor, disfigured, dismembered, and all that, by their very condition, fulfill the laws of God. And so this is, I'm not saying all of them, of course there could be, groups of people who are wealthy and still righteous and upholding God's laws. It will be people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds, all geographical, parts of earth. We've read that already, so I'm not limiting God in any way, but just for people to, again, understand the heart and mind of God, that he does care about his laws, even though a majority of Christians, I would say pretty much all Christians that I've seen, don't teach that. They just say cut corners, do the best you can, it's fine, whatever is needed for your job, just do that, no big deal, God doesn't care, don't worry about the poor and all that, just keep debating, keep arguing, keep winning, keep pushing, keep soul winning, all this kind of stuff. When we're going to see, and I say this in a friendly way, we're going to see where God's heart is. We're going to see who God really cares about in this day, and we look forward to this. We want the blind and the lame and, the pregnant woman to be saved. Why any person who's not an animal would want that, and so then we know that God exists, and then we know that God cares about the poor. And so if he cares about the poor and is going to exalt them and put them in leadership, then if we're allowed in that group under them, then one would think that through their life, through their oppression, that they will not do that to other people, and so this is the God of the Bible. an incredible entity, very, very worthy of worship. And, he will be granting salvation to a select group of people, in my opinion, very soon. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.